3,200 years ago, the world was more connected than it would ever be again for the next 3,000 years. Egyptian gold moved through Syrian ports. Cypriot copper crossed the sea to Greece. Tin came from somewhere near Afghanistan, carried thousands of miles to make the bronze that built an entire age. Kings wrote letters to kings. Empires traded, intermarried, and depended on each other to survive. And then, in the span of a single lifetime, all of it died. Not one empire, not two. Almost every major civilization from Greece to the gates of Egypt collapsed within about 50 years of each other. The Mycenaeans, gone. The Hittites, who had fought Egypt to a standstill, gone. The great trading city of Ugarit, burned to the ground and never rebuilt. Cities that had stood for centuries were abandoned in a generation. Writing itself was forgotten. A darkness fell that lasted, in some places, 400 years. It is the worst collapse in ancient history. One historian called it more catastrophic than the fall of Rome. And here's the part that should bother you. We know what they blamed. Egyptian temple walls name an enemy, a mysterious force that came from the sea. For over a century, that was the answer. Case closed. Except it's wrong. The thing the Egyptians blamed didn't cause this collapse. It was a symptom of it. What actually killed the Bronze Age is something far stranger and far more familiar, because the same thing that made this world powerful is the exact thing that destroyed it. This is the story of the first global collapse. And this is case number 4. To understand how it fell, you have to understand what it was, and what it was had never existed before. By around 1300 BC, the Eastern Mediterranean wasn't a collection of isolated kingdoms. It was a system. 8 great powers: Egypt, the Hittites, the Mycenaeans, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, Cyprus, the Minoans before them, and the city-states of the Levant. Bound together by trade, treaties, and royal marriage. Kings called each other brother in their letters. They sent each other gold and complained when it wasn't pure enough. And the thing that held it all together was bronze. Here's what almost no one tells you about the Bronze Age. Bronze is a problem. It's made of copper and tin. And those two metals almost never occur in the same place on Earth. Copper came from Cyprus, but tin? Tin had to travel from sources thousands of miles away, possibly as far as Central Asia. To make a single bronze sword, you needed a supply chain that stretched across the known world. Think about what that means. Every army, every tool, every weapon in the most advanced civilization on Earth depended on a delivery that started 1,000 miles away and passed through a dozen hands. No kingdom could make bronze alone. They needed each other. We have a snapshot of this world, frozen in time. Off the coast of Turkey lies a shipwreck from around 1300 BC, a single trading vessel that went down with its cargo intact. And what was on board reads like an inventory of the entire age. 10 tons of Cypriot copper, tin, ebony from Africa, ivory, amber from the Baltic, pottery from Greece, gold from Egypt, goods from at least 7 different cultures in one ship's hold, at the bottom of the sea. That was normal. That was a Tuesday in the Bronze Age. This is what scholars now call the world's first globalized economy, and it worked beautifully for a while. Prosperity flowed along those routes. Art, technology, and wealth reached heights the region wouldn't see again for centuries. But a system this connected has a hidden property. When everyone depends on everyone, no one stands alone. And a problem in one place doesn't stay in one place. Hold on to that, because the web that made them rich is the web that's about to strangle them. The first thing that went wrong, you couldn't see coming, because it came from the sky. Around 1200 BC, the climate turned, and we don't have to guess about this anymore. We can read it in the trees. In 2023, scientists analyzing ancient tree rings from central Anatolia found something chilling: 3 consecutive years of severe drought, right around 1198 to 1196 BC, the exact window the Hittite Empire vanished. 3 years. That's the number that matters, because 1 year of drought, an ancient farmer could survive. You live off the stored grain. 2 years, and the system starts to crack. But 3 years in a row, and you're eating the seed you were supposed to plant. The granary's empty. The army goes hungry. The government can't feed its people. And a government that can't feed its people doesn't stay a government for long. And we have the letters. We have the actual words of a dying empire. The Hittite king sent an urgent message demanding grain from the city of Ugarit, 450 tons of it, and ended the letter with 5 words: matter of life and death. The Pharaoh of Egypt recorded sending grain shipments to keep alive the land of Hatti. The superpower that had fought Egypt to a draw was now begging its neighbors for food. That's the human moment here. Imagine being the last great king of the Hittites. Your ancestors conquered Anatolia, and you are reduced to writing letters, pleading for a shipment of grain that may already be too late. And then, the ground started to move. The Eastern Mediterranean sits on some of the most violent fault lines on Earth, and there's evidence that around this time the region was hit by what geologists call an earthquake storm, a cluster of massive quakes, striking city after city across decades as the fault lines unzipped. At Mycenae, archaeologists found crushed human bodies buried under collapsed buildings. The city was leveled, rebuilt, and would be destroyed again. So now picture it. The crops are failing. The earth is shaking. The granaries are empty. Any one of these civilizations had survived before. They were tough. They had endured bad years for centuries, but this time they came all at once. And they came to a world where everyone was holding everyone else up. This is where the Sea Peoples enter the story. And this is where the old answer falls apart. On the walls of a temple in Egypt, the pharaoh Ramesses III carved his greatest victory. In his 8th year, 1177 BC, the date that gives this whole era its name, he describes a confederation of peoples sweeping down from the north by land and by sea. He writes that no land could stand before them, that they had already crushed the Hittites, that they came on like a wave, and he claims he defeated them at the mouth of the Nile. For 100 years, historians read that and thought, there it is, the Sea Peoples, mysterious raiders who burned the Bronze Age to the ground. But look closer at the carving. In among the warriors are ox carts, and on the carts, women, children, whole families, with everything they owned moving south. These aren't just an invading army. These are refugees, people fleeing something, people whose own homes had already collapsed, looking for somewhere, anywhere, that still had food. The Sea Peoples weren't the cause. They were people running from the cause. They were the collapse, walking. So if the raiders were just a symptom, what was the disease? Here's the answer, and it's the most unsettling part of the whole story. In 2024, researchers did something the ancient kings never could. They built a mathematical model of the entire Bronze Age trade network, every kingdom a node, every trade route a connection. And then they stress tested it, pulling out one node at a time to see what would make the whole thing fall. And what they found was strange. The network was strong. Knock out any single kingdom, even a big one, and the system absorbed it. The other roots compensated. It was robust. It was built to survive losing a piece. But there was one specific combination it could not survive. If two particular nodes failed at the same time, the Hittites and the city of Ugarit, the whole network cascaded. And those are exactly the two that Drought and Invasion took out together. This is the thing, this is the whole video. Their strength was their connection. But connection runs both ways. When everyone depends on everyone, a collapse doesn't stay where it started. It travels. One kingdom falls, and suddenly its trading partners can't get tin, can't get grain, can't get copper. So they weaken, and when they weaken, their partners lose a supplier. Each collapse becomes the next kingdom's crisis. The web doesn't break. It unravels, knot by knot, kingdom by kingdom, until there's nothing left to hold. We have the last words of one of those knots. In the city of Ugarit, in the final hours, the king wrote a desperate letter to the king of Cyprus. "My father, the enemy's ships are here. They have set fire to my cities and done terrible things. My troops are in the land of the Hittites. My ships are away. The country is abandoned to itself." The letter was found in an oven, baked hard by the fire that destroyed the city. It was never sent. Across the sea in the Greek palace of Pylos, a scribe pressed his final words into wet clay. Orders posting watchmen to guard the coast, rowers sent to the sea, bracing for an attack. Those tablets survived for one reason. They were baked solid by the inferno that burned the palace down around them. The warning and the ending fused into the same piece of clay. By 1150 BC, it was over. The palaces were ash. The kings were gone. The trade routes were silent. And the most connected world in human history had eaten itself alive. What came next is the part we don't have many pictures of, because there was no one left to draw them. In some regions, the population fell by half. In others, by 3/4. People scattered from cities back to villages, from villages back to subsistence. And the knowledge that had built this world simply evaporated. The Mycenaeans had a writing system, Linear B. After the collapse, the Greeks forgot how to write. For 400 years, Greece had no written word at all. The skill that recorded an entire civilization was lost so completely that when writing returned, it had to be reinvented from scratch. That's what a dark age actually is. Not just death, forgetting. A whole world reduced to a rumor. The Greeks who came later half remembered the Mycenaeans as the heroes of myth. Agamemnon, the Trojan War. Legends about an age so great they couldn't quite believe it had been real. It took the modern world until the 1800s to even prove these places existed. But not everyone fell. That same network model showed which nodes would be the last to go. Egypt, Assyria, Babylon. The ones with their own rivers, their own grain, the ones least dependent on the long-distance web. They survived, diminished, shrunken, but alive. The lesson the model and the history agree on is brutal in its simplicity. In the collapse, the ones who needed everyone else the most died first. The ones who could stand alone endured. And here's why this 3,200-year-old story should give you a chill. Look at what they were. A globalized economy, complex supply chains stretching across the world, specialized cities that couldn't feed themselves, a web of interdependence so efficient, so profitable, that no one could imagine it ending. Right up until a few shocks hit at once, and the connections that carried their wealth started carrying their ruin instead. The scientists who built that network model didn't leave it in the past. They wrote that our world may be entering the same kind of moment, that we too have built a system whose very efficiency is its fragility. that a disruption we'd normally shrug off could, under the right conditions, cascade. The Bronze Age didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it was connected. And it never saw that strength could run in reverse. They were the first to learn the lesson. They will not be the last. What do you think really ended their world? And do you think ours is any safer? Tell me below. I read everyone. This was case number 4. The golden age that built the first global world and watched it burn. Case number 4 remains open.